Hello and welcome everyone. It's Friday afternoon. It is 3 p.m. in the UK, which of course means it's time for PMI Live. This week, it's in the footsteps of customers, how to understand what you're really like to do business with. So customer journeys, the great, the good, the bad, and the ugly. We all know when we're experiencing it ourselves. So why can it be so difficult to get right? What are the issues that prevent organizations creating excellent customer experiences each and every time? What are the factors for success and how can we apply them to our improvement, the improvement of our customer journeys? These are just some of the questions we'll be asking our fantastic panel today. I'm Rich Seddon, Managing Partner of PMI, and I'm in the host seat this afternoon, which I'm very pleased to be so. PMI Live, as the name suggests, is a live and interactive experience. As part of this, we're inviting you, the audience, to join the discussion by posting your comments, questions, and observations to myself and our panel as we proceed through the discussion. At this point, I'd like to say a big hello to everyone joining us on the live streams on LinkedIn, on Facebook, and YouTube. If you'd like to join in with the Zoom webinar so you can pose your questions, you can still register now by jumping over to pmi.co.uk/webinars, and you can register right now and still time to join. So at this point, I'd like to ask our guests to briefly introduce themselves and their organizations. So, Nikki, can I kick off with you, please?
Yeah, of course. Hello, everybody. I'm Nikki Rogers. I'm currently the Retail Director for Moto Hospitality. And Moto is the largest motorway operator in the UK. So we operate over 50 sites. And I am basically responsible for everything that isn't catering, really. And I'm very pleased to say, and I'm sure everybody on the call already knows this, but Moto, at our brand new rugby store, we won Transport Focus last week and we were voted the best motorway service area in the UK.
And I can vouch for that site myself, having been there just a couple of weeks ago.
Good.
Thanks, Nikki. Suraj, would you like to go next?
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Suraj Patel. I'm Director of Operational Strategy at Capital One. Capital One, for many of you that may know, is a credit card company within the UK. We service around 3 to 3.5 million customers, and we provide financial products to customers. So yeah, I mean, we've got a load of accolades that I can also go into as well.
Go on.
Marie-Claire, would you like to go next?
Hello, everyone. So I'm head of content for PMI, so I'm responsible for understanding our both current and potential customer needs in terms of their improvement, learning and development. My background's in improvement across many diverse sectors, insurance, banking, leasing, manufacturing, health, hospitality. And when it comes to understanding what companies are really like to do business with, these sectors are learning a lot from each other.
Cool, thanks, MC. And last but by no means least, Steve Hill.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. So I'm currently the Operations Director at James Purdy and Sons. The business has been going since 1814. If you're not aware, we manufacture bespoke guns for people. We are the world-leading bespoke gun maker. We are part of the Richemont stable of luxury brands, which includes brands like Cartier, Montblanc, IWC, and likes of Chloe. Prior to joining James Purdy, I spent about 12 years being MDs in various organisations, including Alstom, Deutsche Bahn, and GE. I'm really looking forward to having this discussion this afternoon. It's a subject which is passionate for me.
Great. Steve, just a clarification. In terms of the product range, you're talking sporting guns, aren't you?
Yes, yeah, only sporting guns, yeah. And we do a whole range of clothing accessories at purdy.com if you do wish.
Oh, there he goes. Look, he's in. Right. Suraj, the pressure's on you next. These two have got sales pitches. Okay, cool. So thanks very much, everyone. Really looking forward to this. So let's get to it. Before we start the panel discussion, I'd like to consider what we mean by customer journey. In this discussion, we are considering the customer journey to be the end-to-end experience of a product or service user before, during, and after purchase. So those are our brackets today, pretty broad ones, I think you'll agree. There is not an organization out there that sets out to provide substandard customer experiences, yet so many are seemingly adept at it. So why does this matter? Let's just take two widely accepted principles to get this underlined why we're here today. Number one, if an organization provides substandard customer journeys, sooner or later, an alternative will come along who does it better, and they will steal your customers and threaten your very existence. This has been proven to be true in all markets, in all industries and sectors, no matter how high and impenetrable the barriers to entry are. Looking forward to anyone challenging that one. And the second one, it's far cheaper to service an existing customer than it is to create a new one. Therefore, great customer journeys are critical to both maintaining and growing your customer base. So on that basis, we've got 4 discussion topics to take you through today. So starting with understanding, going through to making a difference. Understanding what methods our panel have used and how successful have they been to understand the customer journey? What insights have been gained from that understanding and what difference has it made? How do they deal with competing priorities and how can you balance the business requirements and the customer experience? And finally, we're going to end on making a difference. Our panel's advice, experience and insights into how to improve your customer journey. Now, when I'm talking panel, I'm also going to enlarge this out to the audience as well. So we would love to hear from you on each of these questions as we step through. What methods have you used? Understanding, insights, what have you gained and what difference has it made? Competing priorities, business requirements versus customer experience, or is it versus? And then finally, making a difference. Let's kick off with question 1. What methods have you used and how successful have they been in understanding your customer journey? Nikki, you're first up.
Oh, great. Thank you very much. So actually the first thing that we did at Moto, and actually every other organization that I've worked in as well, was understand our different customer groups, because the customer journey and the customer expectation is very different depending on which group you're in. And the example that I give here in Moto is that the customer journey for a HGV driver who turns up needing to find HGV parking and a working shower is very, very different to the customer journey and the expectations of the leisure customer who's trying to get from A to B with 2 screaming kids in the car and they need to stop off and get a quick snack, versus the needs of the business traveller who wants somewhere quiet to sit to make a couple of calls. So we spent a lot of time understanding who our customers are. And we've looked at that through some detailed segmentation work. We've gathered customer information, anonymized credit card data. We've got all of the information that you can possibly imagine from our ANPR cameras. So we know how many EV vehicles we've got coming in, how many HGVs, how many LGVs, how many ICE vehicles. We know that the EV customers tend to have slightly different expectations as well. So we've worked at understanding who those customers are. And then now that we know that, one of the best routes that we get feedback from is we have 2. We have customer panels where we talk to our customer tribes and we get real-time feedback about things we want to ask them about. But we also have our customer feedback portals where we capture NPS scores and we capture live feedback about things that matter to our customers when they're in our sites. Now, I have to be honest and say that customer feedback portal tends to be mostly negative. And I don't think that's because every journey is negative, but we do find that actually you tend to only go online and tell us about the negative ones. So we do have to balance that and realize that actually just because we have a lot of negativity coming through doesn't mean that actually we've got unhappy customers. And so We've got a lot of sources that we use to gather data.
Okay, that's really interesting. There's a couple of points there, Nikki, I'd like to come back to shortly with you on, if I may. I've put my best attempt at some of the abbreviations that Nikki was using as well into the chat for anyone's reference as well. Steve, what's this like in your world?
So I think, firstly, I've got to say that it's different from any of the world that I operated in before. From working in the luxury goods sector, you're dealing with high net worth individuals, and it's it is about people are making really a discretionary purchase. It's not a need isn't driving the purchase. Certainly for our business, people have an aspiration potentially to own the product that we're making. So they may have had an investment that's come in good, or sold a business, and they're actually have put money aside to come and purchase one of our sporting guns. So I think from a business point of view, when before I'd started, and actually I would say the current CEO, Dan Jago, who joined, and in part of his career, he'd spent time at Tesco's as a senior director, and he really did drive through about knowing your customer and dealing with your customer and getting that customer experience right at the points of contact. So for me, we really, I think, at the time of joining, I don't think we treated customers potentially as good as we should have done. And that, I think, if I had to say, score it, I'd say we're about 1,000 times better. And part of our, like I say, our world, but the luxury goods world is what we call the reveal. So if you go into any, like say Chloe, when they pack your goods, it's packed. It's like literally it has rose petals and fragrance put in there, because it's seen as you're going to hand that on to someone, and then they open it, and it's just the wow factor of opening up that luxury good and something that you spoil yourself to actually buy, or that you've aspired to buy. So I think I as I say, across different industries it's been different, and it's more like akin to what Nikki was talking about in like the power generation industry where I was in, that we spent a lot of time getting to know our customers. But the Richemont world is one that they do luxury really good. So actually there's very good guidance on knowing the customers, knowing where they exist, and then how to actually treat those customers once they've made a purchase from you.
Okay, brilliant. Thanks, Steve. Suraj, can I pose that question to you? What methods have you used, and how successful have they been?
Yeah, we've to echo the two before me, like we use a wide range of tools and methods. Some of the transactional stuff like NPS, which a lot of people have used in the past, just to see how did that individual experience go like. Some more newer stuff like customer effort score, so how difficult was this transaction to get done with us, gives us some great insight into like they got what they wanted, but it was difficult to get to. I think the important bit, and Nikki touched on it, is like we really need to understand who our customers are. We service a demographic which is new to credit or struggled with credit in the past. It's probably the opposite end of Steve's world, and a lot of the people that we work with aren't in that demographic. So we have to find ways of understanding like who these customers are and what they need specifically are. So we do a lot of customer panels where we have a group of customers that are with us for a long period of time, over years, and we follow their lives and their journeys and try to understand what it's like to be in their shoes and tailor our servicing and our products towards them and their needs.
Suraj and Nikki, you both mentioned panels. Could you just tell us through, give the audience an explanation of what those typically look like, how you set them up, and what you do with the information?
So for us, we haven't run any this year because of the environment that we're sort of trading in at the moment. But when we've run them previously, we've identified our customers. They're all online, and we basically use them to answer specific questions that we have. So if we were launching a new product, launching a new service, or wanted to get some feedback around toilets or showers, or particularly wanted to understand what was impacting a particular customer group, then we would target those questions to those individuals. What we did with that data would depend on what came out of it, really.
Okay.
But yeah, we are really clear that we wouldn't run a panel if we didn't intend to do something with the data.
Mm. And who would typically be in that group, Nikki? Where would you get the select the people from, if you like?
So these are all people who've signed up to be part of that group. So we've already got all of their information through log-on details, through panels that they've sort of signed up to previously. So we know what customer group they fall into. So we've got all of their data already, and they've basically already given us permission to contact them and have agreed to be part of these panels.
Interesting. Okay. Steve, have you got... sorry, Suraj, I'll come back to you in a second if I may.
Sorry. No, it was just really to say, I mean, the panels and what have you, but I mean, ultimately, the measure of the customer is, do they return to you? Do they spend more with you? And do they keep on visiting like Moto? Do they, will they actually look on the billboard as you're going down the motorway? Oh, it's not a Moto. I'll wait until I get to a Moto one. That sort of thing. I would have thought was like, the ultimate measure is the sales, because the one thing is, when customers are dissatisfied, there's definitely one figure that gets hit across any business, no matter what sector, and that's the sales.
Okay, cool.
Just on that point, Steve, I think if you're using sales, it's probably a bit too late. Like if you're starting to see sales tail off, like you've already missed that opportunity, and like that's where I see the power of panels. Like because you're on the front foot and you're constantly understanding the evolving needs of the customers before they choose to leave. One of the bits that we also have focused on as well is these panels. Like we can't open these panels up to our entire workforce, a couple of thousand people. But we tried to create what we call like a mini docu-series on the money. So it's like a TV show where all of our staff can watch like the lives of these people and really try to understand like their needs in a more emotional way than numbers and surveys. So it's really trying to get everyone in the company on the page of these people, our customers.
Interesting. Fantastic. MC, can I come to you on that question as well? So methods used and how successful have they been?
Yeah, sure. If I can just pick up something that the guys were saying there about maintain the customers, and it's back to your point, the 2 points you made at the beginning, is that there is a whole sector out there who don't prioritise keeping their customers. And there's those challenges of how do you know if you are actually delivering a good service, even though you're in an environment where, keeping the customer is not the number one priority. So certainly interested in some thoughts from the panel a bit later on that one. It just came to me on that one. In terms of some of the approaches different to the ones that have been talked about, when I was in hospitality, benchmarking was a really big thing. Benchmarking the hotels against competitor hotels. Some of the aspects of that were really, really valuable, got some really good insights.
What kind of dimensions were you using? So when you're thinking benchmarking?
Yeah, so room occupancy, conference usage, number of nights stay were some of the useful ones. The challenges happened when you started to actually look at who was in that benchmarking group and how diverse those hotels were. So one of the hotels I was responsible for, we big conference and banqueting right next to an airport, benchmarked against a hotel that had very, very good golf facilities and golf courses. So not really directly comparable. And that's where it sort of led me down the route of starting to look at, well, how do we benchmark not what we are, but actually what we do? So, and then being able to go outside of our own sector and starting to look at, well, so how easy is it for somebody to make an appointment with, in the spa or in the gym?
Okay.
So there are, appointment booking is in pretty much every sector I've come across. So then how do you then start to benchmark out across that? because what I've started to find is that customers don't differentiate between different businesses. There's an expectation that if I have a good experience of booking an appointment in one organisation, I'd expect that in a different organisation. And it gets to that point, it's like, well, why would it be different? It's the same process. So I think our customers are starting to realise that actually that differentiation shouldn't be by company, business or sector, and how we as businesses can learn from going across the sectors.
Cool. Thanks, MC. So thanks, folks. So what I'm hearing here is some recurring themes around differentiation between customer groups, and therefore recognizing they've got different customer needs, and several takes on measures. One of the things that I'll just add on to here is particularly around the measures, both of success and when you're interpreting the data, is the distinction between leading and lagging data. And I think that's what Suraj and Steve, you guys were touching on there. So, you know, the lagging data, it's too late. It's a key indicator. It's what all our bonuses are paid on usually, actually. It's too late to do anything about it now, versus the leading measures, the things you can still influence. So Nikki, I remember you and I talked a few months ago, and one of the things that came up was one of the leading measures, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, that you guys use is the number of turn-offs, I think you called them, i.e. the number of people that actually come into your, am I using the right term?
They're turn-ins, not
turn-ins, not turn-offs. It sounded wrong as I said it.
That's an entirely different topic of discussion, Rich.
Turn-ins, that's why I said it hesitantly. So turn-ins is the number of percentage of the motorway drivers that actually turn into your service areas, is that right?
So that's exactly right. So we get information from Highways England that tells us how much traffic is passing each of our locations. And we can then see through our ANPR, as you said, the cameras, which basically capture all of the registration details as people come in, what our turn-ins look like. So one of the key measures to Suraj's point around making sure that we're getting the right customers and we understand who our customers are we capturing more of the turn-ins? So even if traffic is down, which it has been since COVID, if we're seeing an increase in our turn-ins, then that, whilst our sales might not be there because actually the overall traffic is down, if our turn-ins are up, then we know we're doing something right.
Okay, brilliant. That's really useful. Thank you. I knew I'd get that wrong. Cool. So Suraj, can I, coming on to question 2. So this is around insights. So the greatest insights that you've gained through understanding the customer journeys, and what difference has it made? Can I come to you with that question first?
Yeah, like there's been many along the years I've been doing this, and like you constantly use it to adapt your processes. I think one that recently stands out quite a lot is when customers dispute a transaction. So what we're finding was a lot of customers were calling us up to say, I don't recognize this transaction on my statement. And like, obviously we want to support customers in understanding more about that transaction and to understand like if it genuinely was them, it's just a mistake, or if they were a victim of fraud. One of the bits we were seeing a lot through our data was that merchants, they wouldn't recognize the name. I'm not too sure if Moto are on this list, but they would have the independent owner of, like, let's say a garage. So they'll be like TNS Limited, but it's a PP garage. The customers was calling us up saying, hey, I don't recognize this transaction. I've never shopped at this place. But actually we had more data behind the scenes that helped them figure out, hey, this is a BP garage, not what the merchant was. So obviously that's a wasted effort for the customer and wasted effort for the business to service that transaction. So we've used that data and made it available to customers in the app, and that hopefully starts to thin down the number of like false positive dispute claims. And I think it's something quite simple, like when you talk about it, it's something really simple now, that took us to understand, hey, how come we're getting so many failure calls in this space, to understand what's the customer experiencing, to figure out actually it's something.
And things like that are a double win, aren't they? Because you've got the customer experience being improved, because who wants that hassle, and feeling a bit foolish at the end of the day when you realise it was your kebab you were buying, and then the second thing is the failure demand, and therefore the capacity you need in your customer service functions to deal with that level of failure demand.
Absolutely. I think it's always around how do we give customers that experience that they want, but also there's got to be some business benefit into it as well.
Okay, cool. Steve, can I come to you with question 2? Greatest insights, what you've gained and what difference has it made?
So we've introduced a wing-to-wing customer experience, but I'll just go into
Are you
one
saying
element.
wing-to-wing there?
Yes.
What does that mean?
Aerospace, isn't it? It's aerospace, isn't it? It's
I don't know. That's why I'm asking.
From wing to wing. Yeah, sorry.
Okay.
So from end to
I'll run with that.
end to end. So before you take the order to after you ship the order, or like, yeah.
Got you.
Okay. Yeah.
It's been a while since we worked together, hasn't it? You've forgotten I'm like this. You've forgotten I'm like this.
I know, yeah. So I'll just go into one element really, and you'll be surprised if you like the before and the after from the point of view. So when we used to ship the sporting guns to customers, so these are walnut stocks, they're highly polished, the barrels and everything's all pristine and highly polished. People used to buy a leather case. We'd put the gun into the leather case. We'd wrap it, protect parts of it, but with say cloth or whatever, and then ship it off. It would go sometimes on an aeroplane, go to to America, and then customer would get it at the other end. They'd open it up, and of course it had been thrown around in the airport. There was like slight damage to things and what have you. And so, if you like, what I went into before, the reveal for the customer was spoiled because he got this thing and it wasn't quite as he expected. And so what we've introduced is a whole new packing regime. So we pack everything in what we call red Purdey socks. So it's got like Purdey on, it's got the brand, everything's wrapped with like greaseproof paper and fully protected. We don't ship it in the leather case that they are normally stored in. We ship it in a flight case, which has been specially developed by us, tested and what have you to withstand great forces of baggage handlers. It fits into its nice little foam inserts. So when the customer, we ship the leather case first so that there's an expectation, guess what's coming, and then the actual one, which is in the flight case, arrives. And, since we've introduced that, we have zero incidents where people are sort of got that little niggle, and they're only little niggles, but like it's enough to spoil the reveal, as I would call it. So that's like a real major step forward as an insight that it's small changes, but you've almost got to NLP it, if you like, put yourself in the position of the customer and actually think about how that could be spoiled for them.
And did you pick up on that you needed to do something about it through complaints? Would that be fair to say?
No, it wasn't that many, but it was just, it didn't feel right that, there was something, there was a high value going to someone, and it again, I used the term hesitantly, but it wasn't as loved as it should have been for me.
Mm-hmm. And of course, what you're highlighting here is that the customer, through their journey, doesn't really care that it's been bashed around by whoever freight company you've used. It's the responsibility lies with you because it's you that they're paying. Same with the example you just mentioned, Suraj, about the misunderstood transactions or the incorrectly challenged transactions. That you have, I'm assuming, no control over the actual terminal naming that when it's been set up. We've all seen it. And yet it's your credit card, you're the service provider, so responsibility lies with you. And it's really key to differentiate between some of these things that within our remit of control. So by digging deep here, I think what you've shown is that you could do something about it, if not the root cause, whereas Steve's example, the root cause was absolutely in your hands and realm of control, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Cool. Nikki, insights from you.
It's a relatively simple one, actually, in terms of, really useful pieces of insight that we've gathered. So we introduced a meal voucher for our HGV customers, and they are an incredibly important customer group to us. So when they pay for their parking, they can then also pay, and they buy a meal voucher, and it was £3 and you get £10 worth of value. And originally, you could only redeem those vouchers in our QSR restaurants. So, not particularly healthy food, but, the types of foodstuffs that we decided in our little ivory towers, which is what the HGV drivers wanted. We quite quickly got feedback from the HGV customer group that said that actually they wanted, not all the time, but they would like the ability to be able to have some healthy options. And that, yes, they love a Greggs and they love a BK, but actually probably not every day. So it was really useful feedback, because we were perhaps guilty of assuming that we all understood what what HGV drivers wanted. And it was a big, substantial meal. Therefore, we selected within our brand portfolio, the brands that we thought appealed to that. Based on their feedback, we extended the offer, and they can now redeem their meal vouchers and M&S. And actually, since we did that, we've had little to no complaints about the food offering that they can get. There's complaints about price and all sorts of things, but around the sort of the offerings, very little now. So really, really useful, really quick feedback, and actually very simple for us to action.
Interesting. MC, quick take from you on question 2 as well, please.
Oh yeah, one of my major insights, and interestingly, again, happened from my perspective as a customer this week, which is about not assuming that our customers won't notice or won't care if we make a change. And again, back a little bit connected to Nikki's point about making assumptions about why a customer is engaging with us, what is it they're getting from our products and services. And actually, by changing that, are we actually changing not the need, because the customer's need is still the same, but actually potentially losing customers because our products are now no longer satisfying that need.
Mm-hmm.
The key one for me this week that's come up.
Okay, fantastic. Okay, so let's move into competing priorities. Now, this is a particularly interesting topic, and one that we see within PMI in not just in the customer journey sphere, but in the improvement space as a whole. So the question we're asking is how to balance the business requirements versus customer experience. Now, going back to what I was saying about our experience with different settings within PMI. Sometimes it's as simple as the space isn't in this year's budget. We didn't make CapEx provision for that. These are familiar tales. I can see several smiles crossing people's faces here. And the challenge here, it's a real one, and I think we've all faced it. So how do we deal with this? And let's talk about this subject then. So Steve, do you want to kick us off with this one?
Yeah. I think for me, it's about brand management when you're looking at this. And I think you've got to be careful, like you've just said, though, about like the budget side of things. But then you've got to also look at the cost of not doing it as well, which sometimes can be hard to quantify. But I think we all know in the live world is that it will cost you significantly more to recover an unsatisfied customer than what it does to actually retain a happy customer. So I think you do have to be careful that you don't just look at the raw data of budgets and also have that awareness of your brand, because again, to retrieve a tarnished brand, the costs are significant. And to get that turnaround. So I think once you've got the virtuous circle going up with customer experience and that, I think, you need to be careful that, someone doesn't just step in and start saying, all right, let's, get more margin from this and what have you, and then starts extracting parts from the customer experience, which then starts impacting negatively against what you actually have achieved to date. And yeah, I'd just say, that is my biggest concern in any really brand that I've been in, is that there is, I'll use the term nicely, but the bean counters, you have to be careful. They don't have the day, if you like, that, yes, but there's other ways of getting more margin. It's not about extracting where you've, as I say, if you've got that virtuous circle of customer experience and people are starting to come towards you because, you know, of the reputation that you're gaining in the marketplace. A lot of good can be undone just through trying to get that extra couple of percent.
Okay, cool. Thanks, Steve. Suraj, you want to come in on that point?
Yeah, I'll maybe take one for the bean counters here.
Oh dear, there's two of you on the line.
I know. I should say this on the customer team. I think you make your point on understanding customers is, and your brand and your brand promise is absolutely prevalent here, right? It's what are you aspiring to be as a brand, and you can't always be the Rolls Royce of everything. So you have to cut your brand's cloth accordingly. I think where we and this is my inner tussle for many years on doing this, I've had to get myself comfortable with is like the more experiences, the more wow factors you put into a customer's journey, the more they're going to ultimately have to pay for that in the consumption of that product. And we have to get that seesaw of cost versus experience right as well. And it's really difficult to go out to a customer and go, hey, the only way we can keep this cheap is by pulling back on some of those frills. And I think the way you manage that is through how you brand your products.
Yeah, and I think the other aspect I'd add to what you've just said there is it's not only potentially building in additional costs sometimes, it's also extra maintenance in some of the complexity that you can build, which at a stats level and a performance level, you run the risk sometimes of introducing additional opportunities for error. Inadvertently, and it's quite perverse conversation, conflict there in terms of seeking to improve that customer journey, but if not done right, you could make the experience less good, as it were. Steve, we've got a battle going on here. Steve, Steve's hands up.
No. It's actually what you were just saying there, and it's actually to support what was being said, and it is about process, though, isn't it? I wrote down for this one actually process, and it is about, and goes to your point about maintenance. If you get the processes right, they're very low maintenance and low cost for you to actually do, but they give you a big bang for bucks with the customer. Then that you should be doing that all day. I think where organizations fail is that their processes aren't streamlined, are clunky, and it does cost more to maintain. And I totally agree with what you're saying, is the more you give a customer, the more that there's that expectation is there. But it's also, again, I will go back to it, if you don't do it, there's always someone behind you who's going to give the customers that experience and take it away from you.
Cool. So I'm going to come to MC and then Nikki after that, if I may.
Some great points there, and I think one of the things that I'm very conscious of is we try to do more and more and more for our customers without really understanding what is it as a base principle, what is it that they actually value, and the situations we can get ourselves into where we're trying to delight our customers, yet we haven't actually dealt with the basics, and therefore we wonder why we're losing them, because we're trying to do all this great stuff for them. And actually, we've missed the very basic value that our customers experience. And I think in terms of understanding how we deal with those competing priorities in our businesses, is if we can eliminate what it is that the customers don't value, that we don't need to be doing, how do we automate the basics so they cannot go wrong? So our customers are only ever experiencing on target with minimum variation, because our customers don't experience average performance. And then we free up that capacity to really be able to then add that additional value to those customers. And Suraj's point about, and how does that then come at a premium? Because actually we're offering a premium service or a premium product that demands that additional attention to detail, that additional engagement.
Okay, fantastic. Nikki, can I come to you on this one? Because I, with all the work I've done in retail, I find this a particularly fascinating subject.
Yeah, so I think I violently agree with everything that has already been said, but just to sort of, just to stick up for the bean counters, and I don't often do that. I do think that, I totally understand that we need to have our eye on what next year, the year after, and the year after looks like. What the bean counters do is make sure that we've still got a business to manage next year, the year after, and the year after. So, and it's taken me a long time to recognize that when somebody says, sorry, you can't do that, it's not because what I want to do isn't a good idea or might not even be the right thing for the customer. But as we sit here in this year with the financial challenges that we're all living through, we all have to make some difficult decisions. And what we've done as a business is really focused on what MC was saying around what is it that's important to our customers. So we know that most of our feedback that we get is around toilets and around customer service. And so what we've done is said, well, actually, let's refocus our spend and our energy around improving the toilets. And that isn't always about, putting in brand new toilets. Sometimes it can be as simple as investing in different cleaning materials or providing a few extra hours to clean those toilets to make sure that they're as good as they can be. We know as well that actually nobody likes queuing. We know that, but we don't live in an environment where we can just throw additional people into those units. What we know from feedback is that actually, if you acknowledge those customers when they're standing in the queue and you greet them and you talk to them when they get to the counter, actually they don't mind queuing. So we've refocused our attention around, well, in an environment where everybody is looking after the pennies, what is our long-term vision? And we still have that long-term vision. We haven't got rid of it. We haven't parked it. It's just that delivering against that long-term vision around what our customers want is going to look different this year and probably into early part of next year. But by understanding what's important to our customers, we believe that we've been able to focus in and really direct our spend and our energy to the areas where we feel we're going to make the most difference.
Brilliant. Thanks, Nikki. Great example. So moving into question 4, making a difference. This is where we're looking for your advice, experience, and insights on how to improve that customer journey. So we've talked around lots of examples and what you've done with the insights. So looking for your key words of wisdom on this one, really. And then following that, if we have time, I've got a couple of clarifications I'd like to put to you guys as well. So Suraj, can I put question 4 to you first? So your advice and insight on how to go about improving the customer journey.
Yeah, I'll pick up on what MC was saying on that Kano principle, great tool to use of understanding, what are the core services that you have to provide, and you get that wrong, you're not even at the starting gate versus the exciters and delighters. And how do you start to measure the gaps of where you want to be or where customers want to be versus where you are now? That would give you a really quick heat map on where are the key areas that you could go after that will fundamentally move the dial. You have limited resources, as Nikki was saying, you've got to put them in the best place at the right time. I think that's definitely one of them. And then the second top tip is test. We spend so long thinking we know what customers want, go away, design this amazing experience for them that when you launch it, it's either launched too late or it's not quite right. So do lots of testing, do lots of little iterations rather than one big grand reveal.
Brilliant. Thanks, Raj. MC, can I put that one to you as well?
Yeah, one of the things that I've been very conscious of working with clients as well is how does a company look after its customers when things do go wrong? To the best of our ability, we're trying to make sure that things don't, but unfortunately, things outside of our control will inevitably happen. So how do we look after the customers during that situation? Because it's not about the compensation afterwards. It's about in that moment, how do we make the customers feel that they are the most important people there when things are going wrong, and actively use that as a learning opportunity to then improve the processes. But I think it's really key, in terms of, in a world where, we have so much social media around us, the minute something goes wrong, it is out there. But actually people will also quite happily share their experiences when something has gone wrong about how they've been treated and how it was recovered for them. So definitely there's some organisations out there who do this very well. They've practiced this. It's not a surprise. Some of the airlines are very good at this. Number of miles I've travelled over the years. Fortunately, I've had 1 or 2 instances, and you hope they are going to be a rarity. But when they happen, you want to feel that, you know, the organisation, the business knows exactly what they're doing, how they're going to handle the situation, how they're going to look after you, and therefore, you know, that actually builds up that reputation, builds up that rapport, and actually it does have an influence then on future decisions. Certainly mine with airlines definitely has made a choice between who I will and won't fly with.
Cool. Thanks, MC. Thank you very much. Steve, making a difference. What's your advice and experience on this one?
My first bit of advice is on a business development opportunity for you, British Airways. MC, I think you need to talk to them, having suffered a delayed flight from Milan yesterday. Yeah, total lack of communication, absolute zero customer service. So yeah, piece of work there for you, I do believe.
I'll add that one to the list because that wasn't one of the ones I was thinking of, but I'll add that.
Okay. I think it's about the culture of the business, and it's not one person. It's not like the customer service department. It's the whole business who are in the business of giving customer service. So I think it's then about driving that culture where everyone feels the pain if something goes wrong. Things will go wrong. And the best example I can give you is and now if you would have told me this 4 years ago, I would have called you stupid and that, like, you know, you need to be locked up. But we were a week late for a customer who had bought a sporting gun for himself for his birthday. So we had a drop dead date, had to get it there for the date. Something went wrong just at the final part of the process. We couldn't do it. Now, the lads had a whiff round and we delivered it a week late, but it was delivered with a bottle of champagne. Not provided by the company, provided by the staff.
Okay.
And I think if you get a culture like that they wanted to apologise, that something went wrong, and you know, they knew they couldn't put it right. We missed his birthday, but and it wasn't the most expensive bottle of champagne, but the thought was there, and that's like from a cultural point of view, that's one. It's not just about one department or like one person. It's the whole culture of the business who are about customer service.
Cool, thanks, Steve. And Nikki, finally on question 4 with you, advice and insights.
I think the key thing that I've learned over however many years I've been working now, I think I'll share, is the most effective thing that I find is to fail fast, learn and move on. I think we're all guilty of testing things. They're things that we've worked on for a long time. We just know that they should work. We're 100% certain it's the right thing to do. And when it doesn't work, I've done it myself. We've kept at it and kept at it, and we've tweaked it and kept at it, and haven't actually listened to customer feedback, but we've just kept at it. Most of the successful organizations out there test a lot of things, and a lot of them don't work, but they fail fast, they learn and they move on.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you for that. So a few questions that have come in. One is on Suraj, you mentioned process and coming back to process, and Steve, you did as well, I think. Specifically on maintenance in a transactional environment like yours, and Suraj, and maintaining those processes. What are your thoughts on that and experience, and how do you do it well?
Yeah, so there's a couple of bits. There's the bits where you go to MC's point, like these transactional processes we should engineer them out so the customers either can automate their way through that and they go right every single time, or where they need like manual intervention, like how do we make sure that the tolerance in terms of getting it wrong is low, so everyone has a quite similar experience, right? So the more you tailor it, the different experiences. So that we'll always have a metric suite associated with each process that tells us real time, like what's going on and how it's been experienced. I think that's good enough to keep you static. It's then making sure that each process has what we call a voice of the customer attached to it. So how do we know that the customer's needs are evolving all the time? How do we know that we're constantly capturing them into our evolution of processes as well? Rather than I think you could say, hey, this process is executed right 100% of the time for the last 10 years. but actually it's just not meeting the needs of the modern customer who's a decade later.
Yeah, and I actually had a pretty unpleasant experience with a financial, it's HSBC, I'm going to say it.
Because it's not us.
HSBC, it's HSBC's corporate banking platform yesterday. We got locked out on the day of payroll, fully comprehensively. But really, the intriguing thing about maintenance there, so the call, really minor thing in the scheme of things, but within 58 seconds, I'd been told this call will be recorded for quality purposes 4 times within 58 seconds. Meanwhile, my staff are potentially quite cross because we can't authorize payroll. Which of course is a fascinating customer journey, but one about maintenance that it struck me. I know technically why that will have happened. It's because it's passing through different call centers, but it struck me that no one's walked that journey recently, and the maintenance and the diligence of actually walking that journey on a regular basis, so you know what the customer's experience, rather than use the most dangerous thing going, which is assumption that it's all okay. And yeah, the voice of the customer is a great thing, but there's a role, isn't there, for walking in the shoes of the customer. So Nikki, can I come to you with a question finally? You mentioned right up at the beginning about potential bias of some voice of the customer data around people that have negative experiences. An interesting quandary here, is it not, is responding and choosing when to respond to those that shout loudest or have had negative experiences, and trying not to make your trying not to color your views in terms of the strategic and non-tactical action you take. So what is your take on that one?
Yeah, I mean, it is really easy to suddenly go, right, we've had 3 complaints about this in the last week, it must be a major issue. What we always do is look at overall transactions, okay, and then percentage of complaints as a proportion of that. So if I've had 1 complaint, that customer might have been a really vocal customer, and he might have, or she might have, kicked off big style and sent notes into the CEO and whoever it might be, and before you know it, it's blown up into this huge thing. What I find is it's actually relatively easy to shut those down at a senior level, and then you can deal with it at the customer level when you go, yes, I know this, but actually, you know, we've had 1 complaint about this in the last year, which means it's 0.01% of all transactions. Okay, this was an isolated incident. This isn't a trend. What's really important, though, is that you spot those trends. And that's what our customer service team do, is that they're able to go, okay, we've had 1 complaint this week, 1 complaint that week, 1 complaint the week before. Is this something that we need to review, rather than just focusing in on the fact that 1 person has complained very loudly?
Brilliant. I'm just laughing there because we've had a piece of voice of the customer coming in here. For those of you that joined the somewhat disastrous PMI Live for last month, when we chose to switch platforms to Microsoft Teams, yeah, we did listen, we heard you, and we switched back to the Zoom. Thank you very much. So folks, that was fantastic. Thank you so much to our panel. Really appreciate discussion. I hope everyone has enjoyed it as much as I did. Just a couple of things I'd like to take you through. First of all, what have we heard here? We've heard about the vital importance of maintaining your customer journey. We've heard about testing and failing fast, being nice to bean counters even. Somewhere along the line. And the importance of balance in judgment when you're looking at any aspect of the customer journey. So on that note, a couple of things we'd like to share with you. Food for thought within our thought leadership content this month. David Sheldon's podcast on our Leading for Business Excellence podcast is out this week. It's rocketing up the charts on all the popular podcast platforms. Please do subscribe to your regular one. David is a very long-term, nearly 25 years, customer of PMI, and has recently retired, and we managed to secure an interview with him in his final week of paid employment. Great listen for that, and particularly in his response of going back to process for responding to the COVID pandemic, when St John were faced with a mass vaccination program, the likes of which had never been seen. Andre Matt, in the middle, Senior Vice, is on the Room for Improvement this month. Senior Vice President at Uniper, the German energy giant. Some fantastic aspirational and practical tips for engaging your team in change. And then finally, our best performing blog we've ever had was released last week. This has resonated with our customers. 5 flowchart challenges, who'd have thought it? That would resonate with you, but it turns out it has. 5 flowchart challenges you'll want your team to know about. So you can access all of those on the Knowledge Hub. QR code is there, web address is there. And absolutely, finally, we are talking next month about organizing for change. So the stuff we've heard about today requires the mechanics, the means, and the engagement around change. So how do you build your organization for that? And how do you optimize your improvement? That's PMI Live next month. We very much look forward to having you with us. Thanks again to the panel. Been great to have you with us. And thanks everyone for joining us. Wishing everyone on behalf of PMI and all the panel and myself a great weekend, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Cheers, everyone.
Thank you all. Bye.